What's up, everybody? It's Frederick Douglass Bussey back with another edition of Power Lunch. Today we are a Solocast. I'm the guest, and we're going to have a good time talking about what was the catalyst for building one of my six-figure businesses and what was the ultimate downfall. I'm excited to talk about this because we get to air some dirty laundry and we'll talk about how we can overcome failure and some lessons we learned along the way. This edition of Power Lunch is sponsored by none other than the Seven Figure Circle $1 Million Mastermind, my Facebook group. And if you are not yet a member, you're watching this on Facebook, you can just hop on over to my profile and check it out and be able to join there if you'd like. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. If you're on LinkedIn, we look forward to your comments. As always, this is Power Lunch. Let's go to work. So almost 10 years ago now, some friends of mine, or a good friend of mine at the time, who was still a good friend actually, approached me with the idea of starting a company together. And at the time he was doing PR, I was fresh out of the music industry. I had been doing PR and artist management. And he approached me with the idea of joining forces with a couple of other gentlemen and starting a PR firm, public relations firm. And so we had some meetings, sat down, we had some chemistry. It was a really great time. And today I want to talk about some of the lessons that I learned from that partnership, some of the things that led to the downfall of that company. And hopefully it'll be valuable for you guys as you're thinking about building your businesses and even maybe potentially having some partnerships as well. This is always streamed live here. For those of you who are watching or listening to this in audio, you wouldn't hear this, but you wouldn't be able to see this, but we're having comments and people joining live. If there's questions you want to know about things along the way, feel free to drop those in the comments below as well. But let's get back to the story because it was very interesting. This experience was one that was it was really powerful, pivotal in my life in terms of growing a company at this level of this type. It was really stressful for sure. It was rewarding in a lot of ways, and it's good to be able to revisit some of that stuff now because looking back, I'm able to learn some of the lessons, but also to kind of remember some of the pivotal success, some cool things about this company. So at the time, this guy was a friend of mine named Chris Joseph. Chris had his own company, and we had both been entrepreneurs. We attended the same church. We have young families. His kids were a little older than mine, still are actually. And he approached me about a couple other gentlemen that he knew. One who was a prominent newscaster or had been a prominent newscaster here in Atlanta. And another was a good friend of his who was a minister and had run several nonprofits and was running a nonprofit at the time. And we joined forces because we thought that there was a unique opportunity for us to be able to put our skill sets together and create something that was really, really powerful. And so what we did was initially we just had a series of meetings where we kind of started to flesh out what that would look like, what the business would be, the name, yes, but also kind of what was our mission, what do we want to attack. And we actually did this for several months, maybe 6 to 7 months. All right, see, I'm too loud. All right, so that yesterday my mic was too soft and today it's too loud. So we're gonna squeeze it back a little bit. Let me know if that's a little better, Robert. Okay. I'm actually not using this mic the right way, but I like it because I don't have to raise my voice. I can talk conversationally. Thumbs up if we're good. Okay. Bring this down a little bit too. Perfect. All right. So thanks for that, Robert. Appreciate the quality control. Um, so where was I? Yeah. So we went through that process of kind of looking over things for about 6 or 7 months, I'd say, really kind of figuring out who we wanted to serve and what we wanted to do in terms of growing the business and creating something that would be really impactful and powerful for Black African American men, um, coming together at a professional level to collaborate with our networks, to collaborate with ideas and things of that nature. It was very, very exciting. And so about, I want to say about the 8 or 9 months in, right? We got our first lead for our first client. It was potentially a six-figure situation. So we prepped for that, and we did all the things that we needed to do. We actually had to fly to Maryland to make that presentation for the client. Flew in. They They hosted us at a golf resort, where a golf club, where we made the presentation. It was very, very. It went really well. They signed us there on the spot, and so we walked away with that first 5-figure check for that first month, and that relationship lasted for several years. So there was some really cool things about that. One of the first lessons I learned in that business was that, a lot of times we're thinking, how do I build this? How do I hit my goals or this target? And this is something that I've taken away and sometimes forgotten even, but always come back to, is that, and I heard Alex Hormozy say this the other day. Somebody asked him, well, what would you do if you wanted to build a six-figure business? And what most people do is they think of, well, how can I sell, all of these different things or these products? What can I do to create this value and then do it over time? And the difference that you learn with, bigger companies, wealthier individuals, is that they attack the problem from the top side, not from the bottom side. In other words, Alex said, I would just go get a six-figure client. I would just go sell something or sign someone for $100,000, not have $100,000 business. And that's essentially what we did. We signed a six-figure client right off the bat. And then with that investment, and we didn't turn around and spend that money. We created a bank account and we saved that money for about 3 or 4 months. And then we went and found a lease for a office space downtown Atlanta. Very cool. We had about 2,000 square foot or so, I want to say, of square foot footage. And so even now looking back, this is back before social media content in terms of YouTube, and having a studio was even a real thing. But that's something that we had. We had cameras. We had a whole white screen set up in one of the rooms where we could do a lot of content and things of that nature. And so looking back, that's something that I wish that we had capitalized on even then that we didn't do now. But but one of the lessons I did learn was that if you set a big enough target, you can actually create something that has enough value that allows you to get more runway. And so we basically had our rent paid for the year. We took some time and then furnished the offices. It was really cool, really chic. It was very impressive when people would come in there. So we were able to impress clients. We wanted to pitch them. We had big screens up on the wall where we would have Bloomberg News, and we could have our own videos and things of that name, things running on the marquee, and we had desks, and it was a really cool environment to be able to work in. It was semi-corporate / semi-startup type of vibe. And so it was really, really cool. We had some other friends that were in the hallway right next to us in the office that eventually came in. And there's a lot of people that were working there. Some celebrities had offices down the hallways. And so it was a really cool situation. And so one of the things that I think that we've kind of gotten away from in the pandemic, with people working from home, and even myself, obviously I have a home office. But being able to have that network of people that are close by that you can touch bases with, you can walk down the hall and you're getting a cup of coffee or getting some, some tea or whatever, and you can just kind of talk and build relationships that way is a really, really valuable thing to be able to do. But you guys didn't tune in to hear about all the great stuff, but I'm kind of setting that up because we had a lot of opportunities. We're members of the Chamber of Commerce. We're going to these different events, and because of some of the connections that people in our network had, we were able to be connected and have different people come by. So we were able to have meetings with ambassadors from different countries, heads of state. We could talk to we had our own banker. So with a situation with the account whereby we were able to start looking at getting business credit and things of that nature, another thing that we didn't really capitalize on enough. Right. But we had a lot of situations that were really there. It was ripe for the picking. And we should have been able to build a $1 million, multi-million dollar business. Right. But the challenge was that when you are attempting to build something big and you have people that are really skilled at what they do, very accomplished in their own right, you're going to have people that butt heads. And if you've ever been in a partnership in business, you know that it's very much like very much like a marriage. And so the key to understanding any relationship is understanding how to manage that and some of the things, the expectations. So let's kind of dive into a couple of the lessons that I learned over that time. One of those things was, you need to be aligned with your partners in terms of your vision. I remember in that first year, we took a retreat to California. So we flew out for a weekend, several days out in LA. And we had an entire weekend where we sat down and had a planning session and talked about the vision of things that we wanted to do. And what was clear was that a couple of things. One, because there were four of us, it made it challenging to be able to arrive at certain decisions. And so because it was imbalanced, oftentimes there was a split right down the middle between how we viewed things. And so we had given basically veto power or decision-making power to the most senior member of the team. We all kind of respected him and felt, well, we would just take his word at it. But if there was you find yourself butting heads and things of that nature, it can be very, very challenging to live with a decision when you really don't want to. And so what that caused was a level of resentment and stress underlying when you didn't feel like everything was aligned. And so that kind of ate away at the fabric of the relationships over time, especially for me. I was the least corporate minded of all of the people. Having come from the music industry and things of that nature, I just didn't like having to sit there and be at work at a certain time. And so there were things that we would butt heads about coming into the office at a certain time. I used to get frustrated because I would drop my daughter off at daycare, and then I'm rushing to get into the office for our morning call, and then I'm the only one there. And yet people were acting like I just had to be there. And it angered me. Right. And so there's that level of frustration because we had this corporate speak and corporate knowledge, and we're trying to marry these two types of culture under this business. And that could have been alleviated had we had a much more clear vision of what that would look like, but also a better communication style in terms of how we were going to navigate making that happen. Right. So actually implementing that is a very, very key thing. And one of the things that I remember Chris used to tell me all the time was you have to learn how to manage up. Right. So in other words, learn how to manage your partners, the relationships, so that you can communicate with them, get the things out that you need to get out, to make sure that you're getting the outcomes that you want to get, especially, but also so you can manage the frustration levels and make sure that you're not, me personally, not finding myself in a position where I'm just getting angry all the time or being frustrated or not able to accomplish certain things. Another issue that we had was that we didn't have the same view around business in terms of understanding how to manage and deal with the money, right? And so this is a very, very big thing. It's all good when you're making money, but then you have to spend it. and having clarity around how you're going to spend the money is a very important thing. And the accountability versus autonomy when it comes to spending money, right? So that's also a huge thing. We all had debit cards associated with the account, right? But we didn't have a similar view on how we were going to spend that money. So we're all taking a very small salary, right? We decided we were just going to allocate something very, very small in terms of where we were until we got to a certain level. And so we did a draw once a month. We're cutting ourselves checks. But other than that, we all had access to the account. We could spend the money as we needed to. But when you're not seeing eye to eye on how the money is spent, that becomes a major thing, right? And so I remember there was this one time where um, I had family that was in the Maryland area, right? And so my wife and I and my wife, my daughter, we all took a trip up there. And I said, well, I'll just go check on the client. And so when I did that, I actually rented a car, and I used the company account to do that. Now, in my mind, you want to be able to spend this money in a certain way because there's benefits to being able to do that. Why not use your business to be able to fund certain things? It doesn't mean I'm paying all the money, for that or whatever, but I had a certain view of that. And when I came back from the trip, like the guys knew that I was there on the trip, but when I came back from it, it was a big deal. They were very upset because I'd spent the money for the rental car, et cetera, et cetera. I said, but I went and I spent time with the client. I did client relations. I talked to them. I was only there for a weekend. I rented the car for a couple of days. And so if you have a business, there are people that understand that process. This was not something that a lot of people were really ready to do. Right. So they weren't really understanding that the business vehicles are ways to be able to fund certain aspects of your life, et cetera, while also being able to support the business, right? It actually lowers your tax overhead. It saves you money. It makes things make sense in the end. But we had a different view on that. And being what it was, that being what it was, it just didn't make sense. And so we had a big argument about that. They ended up wanting me to pay back a certain amount of the money and things like that. And so that also created a certain level of frustration for me. And so it began this pattern of feeling as if I was not being trusted, right? And I'm not going to air all the grievances here, but there was a number of things, a number of decisions, feeling as where I was being micromanaged and always being second guessed in terms of not having the autonomy as an equal partner. And so there has to be a level of understanding when it comes to leadership in your business. Are you clear on what that structure is like? Are you clear on how you're going to communicate? Are you open to being able to do that? When people are not, even though you call yourself peers, if you do not have the view of your partners as peers, that is going to create a level of distrust, a level of resentment, a level of frustration. And so you've got to be able to manage that whole process. And over the 2-year period that I was there, that eventually began to erode for me. It became very, very toxic and very, very stressful for me, right? We had some wins, we had some failures, we're adding people on. A couple of the other lessons that I'll share with you briefly is that one of the things that we could have done to grow the business was to hire more people, right? So there was a great deal of content that we had to produce for our biggest client. But instead of hiring an editor for this content and doing the things that we needed to do, one of the members of the team wanted to do it themselves. And this was a member of the team that was probably the most well-known. And the rest of us kind of felt like maybe you should be spending more of your time actually attracting more business, right? More people know you, but he was tucked away in his apartment or whatever, in his condo, editing his content for 2 or 3 or 4 days sometimes out of the week. And it was becoming a real strain. It's like he's not in the office working with us. It was creating this distance, and a lot of things were happening. We did hire an intern for a short period of time, but that was only for a couple of months or whatever. And we never really got to scaling off. So although we were doing some of the work ourselves, we never started being able to delegate certain tasks to people to be able to optimize our own true strengths. And one of the other things that really came out around that as well was the fact that um, at the time, most of us did not see ourselves as salespeople, right? Understanding the process of sales. We were a PR agency. We did a poor job in marketing. We weren't really telling people about the company in any particular way. We weren't spending any money on ads. Social media was in a different space, but we weren't doing a lot of that as well to really optimize what we had, creating content, doing different things that would allow us to be able to increase our platform. And because we didn't see ourselves as salespeople, myself especially, I was guilty of that. So I'm not really a salesperson, you know. Um, but now the things I understand about how you can create relationships and leverage those relationships to be able to add value to potential clients and bring those people on is a really, really important thing. You have to know how to do this. And had we known that leveraging, if each of us had simply just gone out and found another six-figure client, which was extremely possible, right? Based on the relationships that we had. If each of us had simply gone out and done that, then we could have brought in a lot more revenue. It would have eased a lot of the strain. I'm not sure it would have prolonged the life of the company because, as they say, more money, more problems. But one of the reasons why it would have been so many problems or so many challenges, I think, is because we did not have the underlying structure in place. The vision wasn't clear. The execution and implementation was not very clear. And the lines of demarcation when it came to responsibility and the like were not. And so that would have created an extreme struggle for us to be able to gain more momentum. So that was one of the biggest things. And for me, when we came back from the retreat in California, it was just increasingly clear that this thing wasn't working. And although we had this this nice big office, corner office, 14th floor of a downtown building in Atlanta, all this space, the prestige of being at different events and things of that nature, it was still extremely challenging for me. And the stress level was it was continuously rising. The tension was there, thick in the air every time I came to the office to work. And even threatened my friendship with Chris, over time. And we've been able to repair that. But at the time, it wasn't clear that was going to be something that could happen because it was just so stressful. I mean, there were moments when, partners almost came to blows in the office. We're talking about guys who are wearing suits and ties to work. And you're at this level of tension and that level of stress where you're just feeling like, we're going to have to duke it out to be able to work this thing out. And it just was not an optimal environment. It was not a beautiful culture that we had cultivated, and I take responsibility for my role in that as well, because there were a lot of things I had to learn in terms of leadership, in terms of my own, not so much work ethic, but understanding how to structure and create things that could happen and get the outcomes that we needed to happen in our business. And so ultimately what happened was we had a meeting one evening around a situation, and I made a suggestion about something. And the way that it was dismissed just completely turned me cold. And that moment I knew, and I just shut down. And I came home that evening and I told my wife, I said, I'm going to resign, and my idea was that I was going to do it immediately. In fact, I was so angry and upset. I actually didn't ever want to see them again. Right. So it was my intention to go back into the office later that night, print off my resignation letter, effective immediately, leave it on everyone's desk, clean out my desk, and just leave, turn in my key, all that. And I actually went back to the office, and subsequently somebody was there having a late night meeting. And so I couldn't get in and do that. So I left, and I came back the next morning. Everybody was in the office just working. And I walked in without a word. I sat on my desk, I pulled out my computer, I printed out my resignation letter. I actually what I did was I brought a crate in and I started taking things off my desk and put it in the crate right there. Then I printed off the resignation letter and put a copy on everyone's desk. And that was it. I took my keys out of my pocket, put them on the desk, and I was gone. And that was it. And for a couple of the members, that was the last time I spoke to them for years. Um, and so that's how toxic the situation was. And I remember talking to my mentor at the time. Well, he's still my mentor, but I remember talking to my mentor a little bit later and telling him about how things had failed. Um, he had come by to kind of bless the situation when we first opened up the office, and so there was this entire feeling of this letdown, this feeling of failure and um, dejection that I was experiencing. And he told me, "Hey, look, man, um, partnerships usually fail the first time out. Usually, the first partnership that you have is going to be a failure because you have to learn so many different lessons, and there are certain red flags that you're overlooking in your excitement to get started, and certain things you don't know how to fix. And you have to be able to take the time to be able to work through those things. And it's just a situation that occurs. Most partnerships are going to fail the first time out, and it takes several iterations of that process for you to be able to learn how to make it go the way that it needs to go. So those are some of the lessons that I learned. Uh, and I'm grateful for what happened. I launched my own marketing agency in the wake of that, and learned, had more stumbles and more failures and a few more successes, and a lot of things that I learned that led me down the path to where I am today. But understanding all these things was really important because it allowed me to understand how you can continually build a bigger business, a more successful business, and some of the aspects of scaling that we often overlook, that sometimes we just don't know what we're doing or how to do it, how to make it happen. So this is that's the story of the PR firm and how and why we fail. There's a lot more details. If someone was questioning me on it or quizzing me on it, then I would probably remember or think about it this time. But I just wanted to share some of that briefly with you, and hopefully there's some lessons that are valuable for you and your own journey of entrepreneurship and your own journey of leadership as you're dealing with talented individuals, people that are gifted in their own right, but sometimes you're going to butt heads and you're not going to see eye to eye. How do you navigate through those processes and make things happen in the way that you want to get the outcomes that you're really, really desiring to have? Let me know in the comments below. If you're watching this on a replay, give me a hashtag replay and let me know what you discovered from this whole conversation. And if it's been valuable for you. Have you ever had a partnership that has failed? Have you ever had one that's been successful? And what were some lessons and some failures, or some successes that you were able to see your way through? Share that with us if you don't mind. Let us know what you're thinking. And if you need support in your own business, whether it's in a partnership or you are the sole leader at the top of the food chain, let us know how we can support you. Reach out, give us a comment, or send me a message on Facebook or LinkedIn. Even on YouTube, you can drop a comment and let us know what your thoughts are on that whole process, the entire experience, and how we can support you. Let's see if it's a good fit for us to be able to work together to help you to accomplish your goals and the things that you really want to maneuver through in this world. I love that quote. Failure is not final, but a powerful teacher. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that was one of the other lessons I learned subsequently. I felt like failure was this huge thing that I was really going to be struggling through, and it was going to define me. And the only way that failure can define you is if you quit, if you stop moving forward. And what I found was that it actually set me up as a catalyst to be able to be more successful in other ventures down the line, and to be able to support other entrepreneurs as they're going through their experience in creating something that is meaningful and significant in this world. That's what we're all here for. That's what all we're all about. And I am looking forward to being able to continue to do that in so many other ways. Thanks to all of you who stopped by to watch this live. Thanks for you who have had your comments. Thanks, Robert, for helping us get the sound just right. Appreciate your comments as well. If you are watching this on YouTube, please make sure you like, subscribe, comment. If you're watching this on Facebook or LinkedIn, drop a comment below as well. And we're always back to serve you in every way possible. Join the Seven Figure Circle $1 Million Mastermind. Also want to let you know that we've got December 6th coming up. We've got a major event, year-end event that we do. I'm taking what we usually do with the Best Year Ever event, and we are transforming that. There's going to be called the $1 Million Year. Stay tuned. You're going to see promotions and ads and banners and everything around that. But for more information, send me a comment, send me a message, or comment below to find out how you can join the $1 Million Year, the blueprint for building your 7-figure business in 12 months or less. All right. I love you all. Thanks for stopping by for a moment, a second, a minute, or the entire time. I'm Frederick Douglass Bussey. Ever forward.